Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today, I want to share some thoughts with you. For the past couple of days, I've been reading some articles about Charles Barkley. He did an interview a couple of days ago, and it has generated a lot of news and press because he made some rather controversial statements about African Americans. And in the description box to this video, I will include a link to the interview so that you can hear it for yourself. But in this video right here, I'm going to provide my response to Charles Barkley's statements. And I'm going to tell you what I think about what he had to say. In his interview, Charles Barkley said that when he's around his white friends, what he does is he tells them that black people will never be successful. And he says, oh, don't worry, not because of you white people, but because of black people. And then he went on to talk about how African Americans frown upon success and education. And he went on to talk about how African Americans celebrate criminality and thugism. And he talked about how many African Americans are unintelligent. And he talked about how people in the African American community condemn people who are educated, people who are well spoken. And he went on and on. You know, it's the typical argument that we hear a lot, not only in the larger society, but we hear this message here on YouTube where people are so quick to condemn their own people, African Americans. And they want to talk about the pathology in the black community. And they basically let society off the hook. But here is my response to this whole issue. First of all, black people celebrate success. We celebrate education, and we recognize the importance of education. There are plenty of successful, well-educated African Americans who the community celebrates, even if they don't agree with the people's positions on the issue or they don't agree with their politics. They still recognize their achievement, their accomplishment. And a prime example of such recognition would be President Obama. You know, regardless of people's politics, people may disagree with the president on a wide range of issues. You know, myself included, I disagree with him on some issues. But they still recognize his accomplishments as a man and as a black man. You know, twice elected president, you know, someone who graduated from the best law school in the country, was a member, not only a member, but the president of the Law Review. You know, someone who was a senator, someone who's accomplished much, received the Nobel Peace Prize, even though, you know, people have issues with that, and myself included. But he's a man who's accomplished many great things, and people recognize the greatness of his accomplishments. We celebrate past scholars like W.E.B. Du Bois, and we celebrate people who have managed to create their own successful businesses, people who are models for success, people like Oprah Winfrey and others. So there's no problem with black people recognizing success and celebrating educational achievement. When I hear these stories about black people who supposedly hate on people because they speak proper English, I just wonder to myself, what black people has Charles Barkley encountered? I mean, most of the people that I know in the African American community are striving for education. And they celebrate those who attain education. You know, I see people every day going to school, people that work hard in school. You know, they try to get the best grades. They try to, be successful in life. And many of the people that I know speak proper English, Of course, we know how to, code switch or, use the urban vernacular and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, most of the people that I know are successful, they are educated. If they are not, if they have not achieved their degrees or whatever, they are striving to do so. So these uneducated people that people like Charles Barkley talk about, I don't know these people. I've never encountered black people who condemn someone for speaking proper English. I never encountered black people who condemn people for getting an education. I don't see that kind of activity. So I don't know what black people he is talking about. He's perpetuating this myth that black people frown upon achievement. In my experience, nothing could be further from the truth. And he talked about, this thug culture and all that stuff, basically. And there is an issue with hip hop culture and a lot of the negative images that are projected from that culture. But you have to ask yourself a couple of questions when you talk about this culture that celebrates criminality, and that's the distorted commercial hip hop that's pumped out to our young people. You have to ask yourself, who owns these companies that project this message? Who owns the companies that hire or sign the artists, and who direct the direction of the music by deciding what songs are played on the radio, what songs are heavily promoted? You have to ask yourself those questions. And when you ask that question, you will see that it is not black people who control this so-called art form called hip hop. Somebody else is controlling it. Somebody else is manipulating the images that we see. Somebody else is projecting the stereotypical modern day minstrel image. And that is an image that we don't have control over. And it's a shame that Charles Barkley will perpetuate these negative stereotypes about his own people. See, black people don't have a problem with success. We have a problem with people who sell out their own people for the sake of success. We are the first ones defending the people who have accomplished much in life. We defend them even when they don't defend us. But our problem is with those who abandon the community. People who have abandoned their identity, their cultural identity, their racial identity, and who sell out their people. That's what we have a problem with. So we have a problem with people who don't want to associate with black people. And the other day I was watching a video on Exposing Uncle Tom's channel about this black man who proposed to his white girlfriend. This man, they showed his closest friends. All of his closest friends were white. All of his girlfriend's friends were white. The only black people featured in that video was his parents and the chauffeur. This man talked white, acted white. He was completely white. He was basically a chocolate-covered white boy. So people have a problem with that. They have a problem with people that just completely disassociate themselves from black people and people who sell out their people like Charles Barkley. This man threw his whole community under the bus, talking about black people will never be successful, not because of white people. And that's another point that I want to talk about. That statement, not because of white people. We have this ridiculous notion that all the problems that African Americans face are a result of black pathology. Such a ridiculous and shallow analysis avoids the bigger discussion, avoids a thorough discussion and analysis, a discussion that takes into account our history as a people, our past history, and our current condition as a people. You can't talk about the current plight of the black community without talking about slavery. You can't talk about the plight of the community without talking about the legacy of Jim Crow. You can't talk about the plight of our community without addressing the issue of institutionalized racism, which continues to afflict our community. It continues to afflict our community with poor schools, inferior schools, lack of job opportunities, lack of economic prosperity, conditions that create toxic environments. Those things cannot be ignored. And that's what people like Charles Barkley do when they make these statements about how black people are basically our worst enemy, our biggest problem. He ignores, people like him ignore the reality that creates the problems in our community. When you don't have jobs, when you have poor schools, that's a recipe for disaster. And when you combine that with the influx of drugs and guns, of course, you're going to have problems that plague the community. And people like Charles Barkley ignore these facts. They ignore the continuing disparities in wealth that are a direct result of structural racism. They ignore the problem of mass incarceration in our community, which is a direct result of the denial of opportunity in our communities. So those are just some of my thoughts that I wanted to share with you about this issue. And please rate, comment, and subscribe. And also, I want you all to follow me on Twitter. I will provide a link in the description box to my Twitter account and also to my Facebook page. Please like my Facebook page, rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.